I stare at the termination letter, my hands trembling. 11 years at Meridian Solutions. 11 years of 60-hour weeks, canceled vacations, and building this company from 12 employees to 300. The reason for my firing? A $55 Uber ride I expensed 4 months ago. Fraudulent expense claim, the letter reads. Terminated for cause. Effective immediately. My boss, CEO Jonathan Pierce, won't even look at me. His new VP of Finance, Natalie Crawford, smiles coldly across the conference table. I stand up, leave my badge, and walk out. They just made a catastrophic mistake. The drive home feels like moving through water. Everything is muffled, distant, unreal. My hands grip the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. I keep replaying the meeting in my head, searching for the moment where this became inevitable, where I could have seen it coming. 11 years. I started at Meridian Solutions when we operated out of a converted warehouse in the industrial district. Employee number 8. I was 23 years old, fresh out of college with a business degree and enough student debt to make me nauseous. Jonathan Pierce hired me himself after a 30-minute interview where he spent most of the time talking about his vision for revolutionizing tech consulting. I believed in him, in the mission, in what we were building. From operations coordinator to senior coordinator to operations manager to director, and finally to executive operations director, 5 promotions in 11 years. I earned every single one. I worked weekends when crisis hit. I took calls at midnight from panicking clients. I negotiated vendor contracts that saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I built the operational systems that allowed us to scale from 12 people to 300. I knew every aspect of this business. Client relationships, vendor partnerships, internal processes, crisis protocols. When something broke, I fixed it. When someone needed something impossible done, they came to me. I was the person who made things happen. And they fired me over $55. The Uber ride, 4 months ago. I remember that night with perfect clarity because it was one of the worst and best nights of my career simultaneously. Our largest client, Redstone Financial, experienced a catastrophic data integration failure at 9 in the evening. Their entire trading platform went offline. They were losing millions of dollars per hour. Jonathan called me personally. Taylor, I know it's late, but I need you. Redstone is melting down. Can you get to the office? I was already in my pajamas, exhausted from a 14-hour day. But I got dressed and drove to the office. I spent the next 5 hours coordinating with our technical team, Redstone's IT department, and 3 different software vendors. We identified the problem, implemented a fix, and had their systems back online by 2:30 in the morning. I saved an $800,000 contract that night. But by 2:30, I was so exhausted I couldn't see straight. Driving home felt dangerous. I was nodding off at red lights. So, I did what Jonathan himself had authorized in our employee handbook years ago when he implemented late-night emergency protocols. I called an Uber, $55 to get home safely. I expensed it the next day, along with the emergency dinner I'd ordered for the technical team. Jonathan saw the expense report, approved it personally, and sent me an email thanking me for saving the Redstone account. 4 months later, that same expense got me fired. I pull into my apartment complex, park, and sit in my car. The engine ticks as it cools. I should cry. I should feel something other than this hollow numbness, but all I feel is confused. 6 months ago, everything changed. Jonathan hired Natalie Crawford as VP of Finance. She came from a corporate restructuring firm with an impressive resume and a more impressive wardrobe. Everything about her screamed polished professional. Perfectly tailored suits, designer shoes, the kind of confident smile that makes you feel slightly inadequate. From day one, she started implementing changes. Cost controls, she called them. Efficiency measures. Suddenly, every expense needed 3 levels of approval. Supply budgets got slashed. The coffee in the break room changed from decent to undrinkable because she switched to a cheaper vendor. Long-time employees started leaving. Some quit. Others were pushed out with performance improvement plans that everyone knew were designed to make them resign. The company culture that Jonathan and I had carefully cultivated over a decade began to erode. I tried to warn him. 3 months ago, I sat in his office and told him that Natalie was dismantling everything we'd built. That employee morale was tanking. that we were losing institutional knowledge. He brushed me off. Taylor, you're resistant to change. Natalie is helping us modernize. Sometimes growth requires difficult decisions. That stung. I wasn't resistant to change. I was resistant to destruction. Over the past month, Jonathan became increasingly distant. He stopped including me in executive meetings. Natalie was always there instead, sitting at his right hand, whispering in his ear. Projects I'd managed for years were suddenly reassigned. Decisions I used to make autonomously needed his approval. I felt myself being edged out but couldn't understand why. Now I know. Natalie wanted me gone, and she manufactured a reason to make it happen. I finally get out of my car and walk to my apartment. Inside, I drop my purse on the counter and sink onto the couch. My cat, Franklin, jumps up and curls into my lap, purring. At least someone still wants me around. My phone buzzes. A text from my friend Amir, who works in IT at Meridian. Taylor, I'm so sorry about what happened. You need to know something. Natalie had me pull all your expense reports from the last 2 years. She was searching for anything to use against you. That Uber was the only thing even slightly questionable, and it wasn't even against policy. She wanted you gone and manufactured a reason. Also, she made me change all the admin passwords today and revoke your system access. But here's the thing. She doesn't know about the legacy backup system you set up 3 years ago. The one only you and I have access to. I'm worried about what she's planning. Be careful. I read the message 3 times. My grief crystallizes into something harder, something colder. This wasn't about an expense report. This was calculated, deliberate. Natalie targeted me specifically, searched through 2 years of expenses to find something, anything she could weaponize. The Uber ride was the only thing that even looked questionable, and it wasn't actually against policy. She wanted me gone. The question is why? I text Amir back. Thank you for telling me. Can you still access the backup system? His response comes immediately. Yes, she doesn't know it exists. Don't tell anyone about it. I'll be in touch. I set down my phone and stare at the ceiling. 11 years of my life dismissed over a manufactured accusation. But Natalie made a mistake. She assumed I'd just go quietly. That I'd be too shocked, too devastated, too afraid to fight back. She was wrong. Sleep doesn't come. I lie in bed, watching shadows move across the ceiling, my mind racing through possibilities. At 2 a.m, I give up and open my laptop. The legacy backup system was my insurance policy. 3 years ago, a junior analyst was scapegoated for a data breach that wasn't his fault. He lost his job and his reputation over something he didn't do. I watched that happen and decided I would never be that vulnerable. So, I created a secondary backup system. It runs parallel to the main company servers, automatically archiving emails, financial records, system logs, and documentation. Only Amir and I know it exists. It's not illegal, just cautious. I built it with Jonathan's verbal permission during a conversation about disaster recovery, though I doubt he remembers. I accessed the system through an encrypted portal. My credentials still work. Natalie revoked my access to the main systems, but she doesn't know about this one. I start with Natalie's email history. What I find makes my blood freeze. For 6 months, she's been systematically documenting everything, but not for efficiency purposes. She's building a case. Redundant positions, operational inefficiencies, excessive headcount. She's identifying targets. Then I find the emails to Apex Capital Partners, a private equity firm. The subject lines tell the story. Meridian acquisition preliminary discussion, updated financials for review, timeline for restructuring. I open the emails and read them with growing horror. Natalie isn't just cutting costs. She's preparing Meridian for acquisition, and she's been feeding Apex information for months. One email, sent 3 weeks ago, stops me cold. The operations director has too much institutional knowledge and employee loyalty. She'll resist restructuring efforts. Removing her is priority 1 before we proceed. She's talking about me. I'm not collateral damage. I'm a specific obstacle that needed to be eliminated. I keep digging. The next folder makes me feel sick. Natalie has been sending Meridian's proprietary client strategies to Apex, but not just strategies. Client lists, pricing models, implementation methodologies, everything that makes Meridian competitive. Everything Jonathan and I spent 11 years developing. The acquisition plan becomes clear. Apex intends to buy Meridian at a deliberately suppressed valuation, strip it for assets, and sell off the client contracts. They're not buying the company to grow it. They're buying it to dismantle it. And Natalie gets paid. 7 figures. The bonus agreement is right there in her contract amendment. I find more emails. These ones make me want to throw my laptop across the room. Natalie has been manipulating the financial reports, inflating expenses, hiding revenue, making the company look less profitable than it actually is, all to drive down the valuation so Apex can buy it cheaply. There's an email chain discussing the timeline. The acquisition meeting is scheduled for Monday, 5 days from now. Jonathan has no idea. The emails make that clear. Natalie keeps referencing keeping Jonathan focused on operations and managing his perception. She's been lying to him, manipulating him, isolating him from anyone who might tell him the truth. I find the worst part in an email dated 2 weeks ago. Subject line: Post-acquisition restructuring plan. Natalie plans to fire 80% of the staff immediately after the acquisition. 300 people. Good people. People I hired, trained, worked beside. People with families, mortgages, lives that depend on these jobs. The company Jonathan built, the team I helped create, will be destroyed. And for what? So Natalie can collect her bonus and Apex can make a profit margin. I try calling Jonathan. Voicemail. I call again. Voicemail. 3rd time. Same result. But by 2:30, I was so exhausted I couldn't see straight. Driving home felt dangerous. I was nodding off at red lights. So I did what Jonathan himself had authorized in our employee handbook years ago when he implemented late-night emergency protocols. I called an Uber. $55 to get home safely. I sit back, frustrated and furious. The evidence is overwhelming, but evidence doesn't matter if no one will listen. At 2 in the morning, an email arrives. The sender is anonymous, but the address format looks internal to Meridian. I almost delete it as spam, but something makes me open it. You're not the only one Natalie targeted. I'm another VP she's trying to push out. I saw what she did to you. I have information too, but I can't come forward without losing everything. If you're planning to fight back, you're not alone. There are 4 of us watching this happen. We need someone brave enough to light the match. Are you that person? There's an attachment, an encrypted file. I download it carefully, run it through security software, then open it. It's documentation. Performance reviews for 15 employees. All of them falsified. Invented complaints, fabricated performance issues, manufactured grounds for termination. All created by Natalie over the past 4 months. She's been systematically building cases to fire people, making the company look overstaffed and underperforming, all to support the acquisition narrative. I stare at my screen, mind racing. I'm not alone. There are others who see what's happening, others who've been targeted, others who are afraid but ready to fight if someone leads. I type a response to the anonymous email. Yes, I'm that person, but we need to be smart. We need more than evidence. We need a plan. Are you willing to meet? The response comes within minutes. Tomorrow morning. I'll send you an address. Come alone. Trust no one else yet. I close my laptop and sit in the dark. Something is shifting. The grief and shock from this afternoon are transforming into something else, something focused and determined. Natalie wanted me gone because I was an obstacle. She was right to worry. I'm about to become her worst nightmare. The address arrives at 6 in the morning. A house in the suburbs, 30 minutes outside the city. I recognize the street name but can't place it. He's not going to answer. Natalie has poisoned that well thoroughly. I'm the terminated employee who committed fraud. Why would he take my calls? The drive gives me time to think. This could be a trap. Natalie could be testing my loyalty, seeing if I'll cause trouble. But the evidence in that encrypted file was too detailed, too damaging to be bait. Someone inside Meridian is resisting, and they chose to reach out to me. I find the house. It's a modest 2-story in a quiet neighborhood. Kids' bikes on the lawn next door. The kind of place where people build lives. I knock. The door opens immediately. David Brennan stands there, VP of Client Services. I've worked with him for 8 years. He looks exhausted, like he hasn't slept in days. Taylor, thank God. Come in quickly. I step inside. The living room has 4 other people sitting in various chairs and on the couch. Linda Park, VP of Product Development. 9 years at Meridian. She gives me a tired smile. Marcus Hayes, Senior Operations Manager. He reported to me. 6 years with the company. Amir, my friend from IT. He looks worried but determined. And one more person I don't immediately recognize. A woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. David closes the door and locks it. Taylor, this is my house. We swept it for bugs this morning. We're as secure as we can be. I look around at these familiar faces. What's happening? Linda speaks first. Natalie has been targeting all of us. I'm being set up for a performance improvement plan designed to make me quit. Marcus has been systematically excluded from critical projects. David's client relationships are being undermined. We've been collecting evidence separately, too afraid to trust anyone. David continues. When you were fired yesterday, we realized Natalie was accelerating. You were the firewall. With you gone, she can move freely against the rest of us. The older woman I don't recognize speaks. Her voice is calm and measured. I'm Patricia Morgan. I used to work at Meridian 5 years ago, Chief Compliance Officer. Natalie had me forced out 3 months after she arrived. I've been watching from the outside, gathering information. David contacted me last week. I sit down slowly. How many of us are there? These 6, David says, that we're sure of. There might be others, but we can't risk expanding until we know what we're doing. Amir opens his laptop. Taylor, show them what you found. I spend the next hour walking them through the evidence. The Apex acquisition plan, the financial manipulation, the corporate espionage. With every revelation, the anger in the room grows. Marcus is the first to break the silence. She's selling the company. She's destroying everything we built, and Jonathan has no idea. Linda shakes her head. How did we miss this? How did she fool us all? Patricia answers. Because she's a professional. This is what she does. Corporate restructuring firms hire people like Natalie to go into companies, identify acquisition targets, soften them up from the inside. She's done this before. Meridian isn't her first. I lean forward. How do you know? Because I looked into her background after she forced me out. Her last 3 jobs all ended the same way. She comes in, implements efficiency measures, pushes out longtime employees, and within a year, the company gets acquired. She gets her payout and moves on to the next target. David looks sick. Jonathan trusted her completely. He let her into everything. That's how it works, Patricia says. Find the CEO's pain point. For Jonathan, it was scaling challenges. Meridian grew fast, and he knew operations needed optimization. Natalie offered solutions. He was grateful. Grateful people don't ask hard questions. I think about the past 6 months. Natalie's careful cultivation of Jonathan. The way she isolated him from his longtime advisors. From me. We need to go to Jonathan, I say. Show him everything. David shakes his head. Natalie already poisoned that well. She told the entire executive team you were fired for fraud. She warned everyone not to contact you. If we go to Jonathan now, he'll think we're disgruntled employees trying to cause trouble. Then what do we do? Linda asks. I look at Amir. Tell them what you told me. Amir turns his laptop around. When Natalie had me change all the passwords, I also installed a secondary authentication system. It requires 2-factor verification that only routes through my phone. As of yesterday, every critical system in the company is locked. Natalie's been locked out since yesterday afternoon. So has her entire team. They think it's a technical glitch. Marcus stares. You locked down the entire company? Taylor taught me years ago to always have a kill switch. Right now, Meridian Solutions is frozen, and I'm the only one who can unlock it. The room goes silent. Then David starts to smile. Natalie needs those systems for the Apex meeting. It's on Monday. 5 days away. Without access, the acquisition can't proceed. Patricia nods slowly. Leverage. You've created leverage, but you need more than a system lockdown. You need legal protection and irrefutable evidence. I meet her eyes. Do you know how to get both? I know a corporate attorney who specializes in fiduciary fraud. And I know how to document a case that will stand up in court. But you need to move fast. Natalie will figure out the lockdown eventually. David stands. Then we mobilize. What's the plan? I think for a moment. The anger and grief from yesterday are gone. In their place is clarity, purpose. We have 5 days before the apex meeting. We use that time to build an airtight case. Evidence, witnesses, documentation, everything we need to stop this acquisition and expose what Natalie's doing. Linda asks, and then what? Then we take back our company. Friday morning. Meridian Solutions is in chaos. Amir sends me updates throughout the day. Employees can't access email. The financial systems are down. Client databases are locked. Project management tools won't load. Nothing works. Natalie calls an emergency IT meeting at 9. Amir attends, playing his role perfectly. He looks confused and concerned, running diagnostics on his laptop, while Natalie paces behind him. What's the problem? She demands. The system is showing authentication errors I've never seen before. It's like the security protocols are rejecting valid credentials. Can you fix it? I'm trying to diagnose it, but this could take time, maybe a few days. Natalie's face goes pale. Days? The Apex team arrives Monday for final due diligence. We need full system access. I'm trying to diagnose it, but this could take time, maybe a few days. From my apartment, I watch this unfold through the messages Amir sends. There's a grim satisfaction in it. Natalie built her entire plan on having control. Now that control is slipping. By afternoon, she's panicking. She sends emails to Apex, assuring them it's a temporary technical issue. Their response is cold and professional. Any system vulnerabilities need to be resolved before we proceed. This raises concerns about operational stability. David calls me at 3. It's working. Natalie's falling apart. She just snapped at Jonathan in the hallway. People are talking. Good. How's the documentation coming? Linda finished compiling the falsified performance reviews. Marcus secured statements from 3 clients who were approached by Titan Tech using stolen Meridian strategies. Patricia's attorney is reviewing everything. Titan Tech? That's news. Yeah, we found more emails this morning. Natalie's not just working with Apex. She's also being paid by Titan Tech Solutions, our biggest competitor. She's feeding them our client strategies and proprietary methods. This isn't just an acquisition, it's espionage. My stomach drops. Does Jonathan know? No. And we can't tell him yet. We need more proof. At 5, my phone rings. Unknown number, I answer cautiously. Taylor? It's Jonathan's voice. He sounds exhausted. My heart pounds. Yes. I got your messages. I'm sorry I didn't call back sooner. Natalie said you were upset about the termination and might try to cause trouble. She mentioned that our systems are down and suggested you might have sabotaged something before you left. Did you? The accusation stings, but I keep my voice calm. Jonathan, I would never sabotage Meridian. You know me better than that. Silence on the line. Then, I thought I did. I need to meet with you. In person. Alone. Not at the office. I have something you need to see. Natalie advised me not to communicate with you. Legal liability. I close my eyes. Jonathan, you've known me for 11 years. Have I ever lied to you? Have I ever put this company at risk? I'm asking for 1 hour. If you don't believe me after that, I'll walk away forever. The silence stretches so long I think he's hung up. Then, okay, where? We agree on a coffee shop downtown. 2 hours from now. Neutral ground. I call Patricia immediately. Jonathan agreed to meet. I need the evidence files ready. I'll have them printed and documented within an hour. Taylor, this is your one shot. Make it count. I spend the next 90 minutes preparing. I organize the evidence into a folder. Emails, financial records, the timeline of Natalie's manipulation. Everything printed on paper that can't be hacked or deleted. At 7, I walk into the coffee shop. Jonathan is already there, sitting in a corner booth. He looks like he's aged 5 years since I last saw him. Stressed, tired, wary. I sit down across from him. For a moment, we just look at each other. Thank you for meeting me, I say quietly. He nods. You said you had something to show me. I slide the folder across the table. Before you look at this, I need you to understand something. I loved this company. I gave everything to it. I didn't sabotage anything. But someone is trying to destroy what we built, and they used my firing as the first move. Jonathan opens the folder. His expression is skeptical at first, then confused, then shocked. For 45 minutes, I walk him through everything. The Apex acquisition plan, the financial manipulation, the Titantech espionage, the falsified performance reviews, the planned mass layoffs. I show him emails where Natalie specifically discusses removing me as an obstacle, where she talks about managing his perception, where she coordinates the destruction of his life's work. Jonathan's hands shake as he reads. This can't be real. Natalie came highly recommended. She's been helping me modernize the company. She's been helping herself to your company. Look at the payment agreements. She gets over $1 million when the Apex deal closes. He keeps reading. His face transitions from shock to betrayal to fury. I trusted her. I let her push you out. I gave her access to everything. You were manipulated by a professional. This is what she does. Jonathan looks up, and there are tears in his eyes. Taylor, I need to tell you something. 3 weeks ago, Natalie suggested I sign a temporary power of attorney. My blood goes cold. What? He pulls out his phone, shows me a document. My father had a stroke. I was at the hospital for a week. Natalie said it was standard corporate protocol so the company could keep running while I dealt with the emergency. I signed it without reading it carefully. I was distracted and she seemed so helpful. I grab his phone, read the document. My worst fears are confirmed. Jonathan, when does this expire? He checks. His face drains of color. Monday. The same day as the Apex meeting. I scroll through the fine print. It gets worse with every line. This doesn't just give her operational authority. It gives her the power to execute contracts on your behalf, including acquisition agreements. Jonathan stares at me. What are you saying? I'm saying she doesn't need your approval to sell the company. You already gave her legal authority to sign the papers herself. She can sell Meridian out from under you, and there's nothing you can do to stop her. The coffee shop suddenly feels too small, the air too thin. Jonathan's life's work, my 11 years of dedication, 300 people's livelihoods. All of it can be erased with Natalie's signature on Monday, and we have 3 days to stop her. Jonathan and I rush from the coffee shop to his car. He's already on the phone with his attorney, Richard Grayson, explaining the situation in urgent, clipped sentences. Richard's voice comes through the car speakers, grave and professional. The power of attorney is legally binding until Monday at midnight. You can revoke it, Jonathan, but you need to file paperwork with the court. How fast can we do that? It's Friday at 5:30. The courts close at 5. They don't reopen until Monday morning. I lean toward the phone. By then, the Apex meeting will have already happened. Correct, Richard says. There's one option. File an emergency injunction on Sunday, claiming fraud and misrepresentation. But you'll need overwhelming evidence to convince a judge to grant a hearing on a weekend. Jonathan looks at me. I nod. We have evidence. A lot of it. Then gather everything you have and meet me at my office in 1 hour. We're going to work through the night. I call David while Jonathan drives. Conference call. Now. Everyone. Within minutes, I'm on a call with David, Linda, Marcus, Amir, and Patricia. We have 3 days. The power of attorney expires Monday, the same day as the Apex meeting. Natalie can sign the acquisition papers herself. We need everything. Every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every document. The team mobilizes like a military operation. Linda focuses on the falsified performance reviews, reaching out to the 15 employees who were targeted. By midnight, she assigned statements from 12 of them, detailing how Natalie fabricated complaints and created grounds for termination. Marcus contacts clients, specifically those who were approached by Titantech with strategies that could only have come from inside Meridian. By Saturday morning, he has declarations from 4 major clients confirming they were pitched using stolen Meridian intellectual property. David secures statements from vendors who were asked to inflate invoices to manipulate Meridian's expense reports. 3 vendors provide sworn affidavits and documentation. Amir does something more technical. He pulls system logs showing when Natalie accessed confidential files, when she sent emails to Apex and Titan Tech, when she downloaded proprietary information. Digital footprints that can't be denied. Patricia coordinates with Richard, organizing the evidence into a legal framework. Timeline documentation, financial analysis, pattern recognition showing deliberate fraud. Jonathan and I spend Friday night and all day Saturday at Richard's law office. We barely sleep. Coffee and adrenaline keep us moving. Richard is meticulous. Every piece of evidence needs to be verified, authenticated, and legally admissible. Every witness statement needs to be documented properly. By Saturday evening, we have a case. A strong one. Sunday morning, Richard files the emergency injunction with the court. The request is for an immediate hearing, claiming corporate fraud, fiduciary breach, and imminent irreparable harm. At noon, we get the response. Judge Helen Morrison will hear the case at 2 p.m. We have 2 hours. Jonathan paces Richard's office, running his hands through his hair. What if she doesn't believe us? What if Natalie convinces her this is just disgruntled employees? Then we lose, Richard says bluntly. But we have facts, documentation, and witnesses. That's more than most emergency injunctions ever have. At 1, I get a notification on my phone. Natalie has been served with notice of the hearing. She knows we're coming. We arrive at the courthouse at 1:45. The building is nearly empty on a Sunday. Just security, a few court staff, and us. Natalie arrives at 1:55 with her own attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Natalie sees me and her face twists with rage. "This is a witch hunt," she hisses as we pass in the hallway. "You're a fired employee trying to get revenge." I don't respond. I just keep walking. The courtroom is small. Judge Morrison is a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggests she's deeply unhappy about working on a Sunday. "This better be good," she says as we take our seats. For 3 hours, we present our case. Richard is brilliant, methodical, building the narrative piece by piece. Natalie's attorney argues that this is all circumstantial, that Natalie was just doing her job, that I'm a bitter former employee manufacturing evidence. But the facts speak for themselves. Bank records showing payments from Titan Tech to Natalie's personal account, emails with timestamps and metadata verification proving she sent proprietary information to competitors, client testimony about stolen strategies, vendor affidavits about invoice manipulation. The judge reviews everything carefully. She asks pointed questions. She examines the power of attorney document. Finally, at 5 p.m, she speaks. "I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. The power of attorney signed by Mr. Pierce is hereby suspended pending a full investigation. Miss Crawford, you are prohibited from accessing Meridian Solutions facilities or systems until further notice. Mr. Pierce, your authority as CEO is fully restored. We will schedule a full hearing within 30 days to determine permanent resolutions." She looks at Natalie. "Miss Crawford, if even half of what has been presented today is true, you're facing serious criminal charges. I suggest you retain competent legal counsel." Natalie stands, her face flushed. "This is illegal. The acquisition is scheduled for tomorrow. Apex will sue for breach of contract." Judge Morrison's voice is ice. "Then Apex Capital Partners can address their concerns with this court. This hearing is adjourned." We walk out of the courthouse in stunned silence. Then Jonathan stops on the steps and breaks down crying. Relief, exhaustion, anger, all of it hitting him at once. "You saved everything," he says to me. "I almost lost it all." My phone rings. Unknown number again. I answer. "Miss Taylor?" A man's voice, professional and clipped. "This is Robert Chen, General Counsel for Apex Capital Partners." My stomach tightens. "Yes?" "I've been copied on some very disturbing emails in the last hour. Emails that suggest Miss Crawford misrepresented Meridian's financial status and operational readiness to my company. I want you to know that Apex does not engage in fraudulent acquisitions. We were not aware of Miss Crawford's methods. We're withdrawing from the deal immediately and will cooperate with any investigations into this matter." Relief floods through me. "Thank you for calling. However," his voice darkens, "I feel obligated to warn you. We weren't the only interested party. Titan Tech Solutions has apparently been planning a hostile takeover attempt if our acquisition fell through. Their CEO, Andrew Westfield, is known for extremely aggressive tactics. Your company may still be in danger. What kind of tactics? Hostile shareholder moves, board manipulation, leveraged buyouts. If they've been cultivating board members or major investors, they could force a sale even without your CEO's consent. You stopped one threat. Be prepared for another. The line goes dead. I turn to Jonathan. His relief vanishes when he sees my face. What's wrong? It's not over. Sunday evening, Jonathan makes calls from Richard's office, reaching out to Meridian's board members. There are 6 of them, plus Jonathan himself. 3 early investors who've been with the company since the beginning. 2 independent directors brought in as the company grew, and 1 advisory member. Emergency board meeting. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Attendance is mandatory. Some of them grumble about the short notice. Jonathan doesn't care. His company is under attack, and he needs to know who he can trust. We work through the night again. No sleep, just coffee and determination. Patricia, Richard, David, Linda, Marcus, and Amir join us. We're building more than a legal case now. We're building a battle plan. At 3 in the morning, Marcus finds something in the files Amir pulled from the backup system. Taylor, look at this. It's an email chain between Natalie and 2 of the board members. Graham Willis, one of the early investors, and Susan Hartley, an independent director. They're discussing the Apex acquisition. But more than that, they're discussing how to handle Jonathan if he resists. I read the messages with growing horror. Graham writes, Stratton's been struggling since his wife died 2 years ago. Depression, exhaustion. We have documentation ready showing diminished capacity. If he fights the acquisition, we can have him declared mentally unfit, force a medical leave, appoint a conservatorship. Susan responds, The board has that authority under the corporate bylaws. It's for his own good. He's not thinking clearly. They're planning to have Jonathan institutionalized if he tries to save his own company. I show Jonathan. His face goes from shocked to devastated to enraged in seconds. Graham and Susan? They've been on my board for almost a decade. I trusted them. Patricia looks over the emails. They've been compromised. Either they're getting paid by Titan Tech, or they've been convinced the acquisition is in the company's best interest. Either way, they're co-conspirators. Richard adds the evidence to our files. This is securities fraud on top of everything else. The SEC will be very interested in this. Monday morning arrives. I dress in my best suit, the navy one I used to wear for major client presentations. It feels like armor. We arrive at Meridian at 7:30. Walking back into the building feels surreal. It's been 4 days since I was fired, but it feels like years. Employees stare as we walk through the lobby. Word has spread about the court hearing, about the system lockdowns, about something major happening. The boardroom is on the executive floor. Large windows overlooking the city, a long mahogany table, expensive leather chairs. I've been in this room hundreds of times, but never like this. The board members arrive one by one. Graham Willis, 50s, balding, always wore expensive suits. He sees Jonathan and tries to smile. It doesn't reach his eyes. Susan Hartley, 40s, sharp and polished. She glances at me and quickly looks away. The other board members, Thomas Chen, early 60s, one of the original investors. Patricia Wu, late 50s, brought in 3 years ago for her tech industry experience. And Michael Anderson, the advisory member, 70s, retired CEO of another consulting firm. Notably absent, Natalie. The restraining order prohibits her from being here. Jonathan sits at the head of the table. I stand beside him with Richard. David, Linda, Marcus, Patricia Morgan, and Amir are there too, seated along the wall as witnesses. Jonathan speaks first. Thank you for coming on short notice. What I'm about to share will shock you. Some of you may have received calls from Natalie Crawford this weekend. I'm asking you to hear the full story before making any judgments. For 90 minutes, we present everything. The acquisition plot, the financial manipulation, the Titan Tech espionage, the falsified performance reviews, the fraudulent power of attorney. Every piece of evidence, methodically organized and irrefutably documented. Thomas and Patricia Wu are visibly shocked, asking detailed questions, taking notes. Michael Anderson sits quietly, his expression grave. But Graham and Susan look nervous. Graham keeps checking his phone. Susan fidgets with her pen. Jonathan reaches the evidence about board corruption. He slides copies of the email chain across the table. Graham. Susan. I need you to explain these. Graham's face flushes. Jonathan, you're taking those out of context. We were just discussing contingency plans in case you were incapacitated. It's responsible governance. Responsible governance? You were planning to have me declared mentally incompetent and locked away if I resisted selling my company. Susan stands. This is outrageous. We have a fiduciary duty to shareholders. If an acquisition offer is in the company's best interest, we have to consider it, regardless of emotional attachments. Emotional attachments? Jonathan's voice is dangerously quiet. This is my life's work. These are 300 people's careers. And you call that an emotional attachment? Thomas speaks up. Graham, Susan, did you have prior contact with Titan Tech Solutions about this acquisition? Graham is too long. Susan looks away. Amir turns his laptop around. I can answer that. Graham has been in communication with Titan Tech's CEO for 3 months. So has Susan. They were both paid consulting fees. $25,000 each. The payments are documented in their personal bank accounts, which I accessed through proper legal channels with a court order obtained this morning. The room erupts. Thomas stands, furious. Patricia Wu is shaking her head in disbelief. Michael Anderson looks disgusted. Graham tries to leave. Jonathan blocks his path. Sit down, Graham. We're not finished. Richard speaks now. Mr. Willis, Miss Hartley, you've violated your fiduciary duties to this company. You conspired with outside parties to engineer a hostile acquisition while sitting on the board. That's securities fraud, breach of contract, and about 6 other criminal charges. You will resign from this board immediately, or we will pursue full prosecution. Susan's voice is desperate. You can't prove any of this would hold up in court, and Titan Tech's offer is still on the table. They'll tie you up in litigation for years. You can't win. The boardroom door opens. A woman in a dark suit walks in, carrying a briefcase. She's flanked by 2 federal agents. Actually, she says, Titan Tech's offer was withdrawn 30 minutes ago. Everyone turns to stare. She continues, I'm Jennifer Walsh, Deputy Attorney General for the state. We've been investigating Titan Tech Solutions for corporate espionage and RICO violations for 18 months. The information provided by Meridian Solutions this weekend gave us the final pieces we needed. She sets her briefcase on the table. This morning at 6, we executed search warrants at Titan Tech's headquarters. Their CEO, Andrew Westfield, and 3 senior executives are currently under arrest. Their company is under federal investigation. They won't be acquiring anyone. She looks directly at Graham and Susan. Mr. Willis, Miss Hartley, you should retain criminal defense attorneys. Federal prosecutors will be contacting you this week regarding conspiracy charges, securities fraud, and accepting bribes to influence corporate governance. Graham's face drains of all color. Susan starts crying. Jennifer turns to Jonathan. Mr. Pierce, your cooperation in this investigation has been invaluable. Your company is no longer under threat. Congratulations on being an honest businessman in a very corrupt industry. She looks at me. Miss Taylor, the FBI will want your testimony about the evidence you uncovered. You may have just dismantled one of the largest corporate espionage operations on the West Coast. She nods to the agents. They move toward Graham and Susan. Mr. Willis, Miss Hartley, you're not under arrest at this time, but we need you to come with us for questioning. As they're escorted out, the boardroom falls silent. Then Thomas starts clapping. Slowly at first, then louder. Patricia Wu joins him. Michael Anderson stands and applauds. Jonathan looks at me, tears streaming down his face. You saved everything. The emergency board meeting continues without Graham and Susan, with just Thomas, Patricia Wu, Michael, and Jonathan remaining. The dynamic shifts entirely. Jonathan addresses the room. We need to talk about what happens next. Meridian was almost destroyed because I stopped paying attention. I got comfortable, delegated important decisions to someone I didn't properly vet, and ignored warnings from people I should have trusted. He looks directly at me. Taylor, I need to say this publicly. I failed you. I let Natalie manipulate me into firing the person who's been the backbone of this company for 11 years. I questioned your integrity over $55 while thieves were stealing millions. I have no right to ask this, but I'm asking anyway. He stands. Come back. Not as operations director, as chief operating officer. Equal partner in rebuilding what we almost lost. Full board seat, equity stake, everything you should have had years ago. The remaining board members nod in agreement. Thomas says, I'll second that motion. All in favor? Unanimous approval. I look around the room. At David, who risked his career to gather evidence. At Linda, who documented the fraud despite knowing she could be fired. At Marcus, who stood up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. At Amir, who literally locked down the entire company to protect it. At Patricia Morgan, who kept fighting even after Natalie forced her out. I'll accept, I say. On one condition. These 5 people also get promotions and board positions. They risked everything. They don't work for Meridian. They are Meridian. Jonathan doesn't hesitate. Done. David, Linda, you're both senior VPs now. Marcus, you're VP of Operations. Amir, you're Chief Technology Officer. Patricia, I want you back as Chief Compliance Officer with a permanent board seat. Over the next weeks, the pieces fall into place. Natalie is arrested on multiple federal charges: corporate espionage, securities fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The case against her is airtight. Graham and Susan face prosecution. They ultimately plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for cooperation with federal investigators. Titan Tech's collapse creates a vacuum in the market. Meridian acquires several of their client contracts at favorable terms. The company Jonathan built not only survives but begins to thrive. The 80 employees Natalie targeted for termination are not only kept, but given raises and expanded responsibilities. Morale, which had been destroyed under Natalie's reign, begins to recover. I implement new governance policies. No single executive can ever have unchecked power again. Whistleblower protections are formalized into corporate policy. Financial transparency becomes mandatory, with quarterly audits by independent firms. 3 months later, I sit in my new corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city skyline, furniture I actually chose myself. There's a knock on my door. Jonathan enters with 2 cups of coffee, just like he used to do in the old days when we'd brainstorm solutions to impossible problems. The 3rd quarter numbers just came in, he says, handing me a cup. We're up 42% from last year. Client retention is at 98%. Employee satisfaction surveys are the highest they've been in 3 years. We're actually thriving. We almost lost it all, I say quietly. I almost lost it all, he corrects. You never lost faith in what we built. He sits across from me. I've been thinking about what happened. How did I become so blind? I trusted Natalie completely and doubted you without question. She was a professional. She isolated you from people who would tell you the truth. That's how con artists work. But you saw through her immediately. Why didn't I listen? I consider this. Because I was too close to you. I had too much history, too much institutional knowledge. She made you think that was a weakness instead of a strength. She made you believe I was resistant to change when I was really resistant to destruction. Jonathan nods slowly. I got comfortable. I stopped paying attention. I delegated my judgment to someone I barely knew. We both learned something, I say. I learned that loyalty without boundaries is dangerous. You learned that trust without verification is foolish. He takes a sip of coffee. What would you have done if the judge hadn't granted the injunction? I smile slightly. Amir and I were prepared to lock down the systems permanently. We would have held the company hostage if necessary, forced everyone to negotiate. I wasn't going to let them destroy this place without a fight. Jonathan laughs, surprised. You would have actually done it? Without hesitation. Because this company isn't just yours, Jonathan. It's mine. It's David's, Linda's, Marcus's, Amir's, Patricia's. It's everyone who believed in what we were building. Nobody gets to steal that. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jonathan speaks again, his voice thoughtful. You know what's interesting? That $55 Uber expense, the thing that was supposed to destroy you, it's become legendary in the company. People call it the most expensive Uber ride in corporate history. I laugh. Because it exposed a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Exactly. Small injustices reveal massive corruption. If Natalie had just left you alone, she might have gotten away with everything. But she had to remove you. And in doing so, she created her own worst enemy. I think about that. About how being fired felt like the end of my world. How devastated I was, sitting in my apartment that first night, feeling erased and worthless. I used to think loyalty meant never questioning authority, I say. Never pushing back. Always saying yes. I thought being valuable meant being agreeable. That keeping my head down and working hard would be enough. But, Jonathan prompts, but that $55 expense taught me something crucial. Your value isn't measured by your obedience. It's measured by what happens when you're gone. Jonathan nods. Natalie thought removing you would clear her path. She didn't realize she was creating a problem far bigger than any she solved. Because someone who knows everything, who built everything, who genuinely cares, that person doesn't disappear when you fire them. They become dangerous. You became her worst nightmare. We all did, I correct. This wasn't just me. It was 6 people who refused to let corruption win, who chose to fight even when it was terrifying. Jonathan stands, walks to the window. I learned something too. The people closest to you aren't obstacles, they're guardians. I learned that trust is earned over years and can be destroyed in moments. And I learned that real leadership means staying vigilant, not just delegating authority and hoping for the best. He turns back to me. We rebuilt Meridian on a new foundation. Not just better policies, a better culture. One where speaking truth to power is rewarded, not punished. I think about the employees who've returned, about the new hires who joined because they heard about what happened and wanted to work for a company that fought back against corruption, about the clients who renewed their contracts because they trust us again. The investigators asked me why I fought so hard, I say. They told me most people would have just taken their termination, filed for unemployment, and moved on. Why risk everything? What did you tell them? That sometimes moving on means letting evil win. And I wasn't raised to let bullies destroy good things just because fighting back is hard. Jonathan smiles. You know what I'm most grateful for? That you didn't give up on me. Even when I gave up on you. Even when I believed Natalie over you. You still fought to save this company. I wasn't fighting for you, I say honestly. I was fighting for what we built together. For the people who depended on it, for the idea that good work and integrity should matter more than corporate manipulation. And now I have that framed expense report on my wall. I gesture to it, hanging behind my desk. $55. The amount they thought I was worth, the amount they thought would erase me. It became the number that saved 300 jobs, Jonathan says, and exposed a criminal empire and proved that the smallest injustice can reveal the biggest corruption. My phone buzzes. A reminder about the all-hands meeting in 30 minutes. The first one since everything happened. The first one where I'll stand at the front as COO and address the entire company. Jonathan sees my expression. Nervous? A little. What do I even say? Tell them the truth. That we almost lost everything because we got comfortable. That we were saved by people who cared enough to fight back. That Meridian is more than a company, it's a community. And communities protect each other. The meeting goes better than I expected. 300 employees packed into the main conference room and overflow spaces. I tell them what happened. Not every detail, but enough. About the conspiracy, about the people who resisted, about how close we came to destruction. When I finish, there's silence. Then someone starts clapping. Then everyone. Standing ovation that lasts almost 5 minutes. Afterwards, employees come up to thank me, to share their own stories of feeling targeted by Natalie, of being afraid to speak up, of relief that it's over. One woman, a project manager named Sarah who's been with the company for 4 years, pulls me aside. I was one of the 15 people on Natalie's termination list. The falsified performance reviews. I was going to lose my job, and I didn't know why. Thank you for fighting for us. I look at her. You would have done the same. I don't know if I would have been brave enough. Bravery isn't not being afraid. It's being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. You stayed quiet because you had to. I had nothing left to lose. which made me dangerous. We all play different roles. That night, I sit in my apartment with Franklin, the cat purring in my lap. I think about everything that's happened, about how 4 days felt like 4 years, about how being fired was simultaneously the worst and best thing that could have happened. If Natalie hadn't fired me, I wouldn't have investigated. I wouldn't have discovered the conspiracy. I wouldn't have rallied the resistance. I wouldn't have saved the company. My phone buzzes. A text from David. Drinks this weekend? The resistance deserves a celebration. I smile. The resistance. That's what we've been calling ourselves. The 6 people who refuse to let corruption win. I text back. Definitely. We earned it. Another text, this time from Amir. Taylor, you should know. I finally unlocked all the systems today. Everything's back to normal. Well, the new normal. The better normal. The better normal. I like that. I've learned that sometimes the system needs to be disrupted to be saved. That authority without accountability is dangerous. That loyalty should flow both ways. That speaking truth to power isn't insubordination, it's integrity. I learned that being fired isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of a better one. And I learned that $55 can change everything, if you're brave enough to fight back. So, let me ask you something, because I think this matters. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew something was wrong but felt powerless to speak up? Where you watched corruption happen but feared the consequences of resisting? What would it take for you to find your voice and fight back? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the power of standing up for what's right, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're more powerful than they think. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're never as powerless as you feel. That knowledge is leverage. That integrity is strength. And that sometimes, the person they underestimate the most becomes the one they should have feared the most. Stay strong, stay honest, and never let anyone make you feel small. Until next time.